I think when you got a couple kids at home and you just kind of risked everything, I think some people are willing to go all the way.
Yeah.
And like I was in the deep end, and for me, losing is not an option.
Yeah.
Man.
And so that was kind of the first sign to myself, like, damn, you really are willing to do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a validating thing too, like we can laugh about it now, but like it was a real thing. I'm like, I know this brand is going to be successful. I know I'm going to be able to hire a couple brewers who make good beer. Like, I'm doing it. Doing it. I have to get this thing off the ground.
So our guest today on the Darren Woodson Show is Josh Landan. And you're going to get to know Josh Landan because this guy is not only one of the great entrepreneurs of our time, but a man that is not afraid to take a chance and deservedly, even though he's an Eagles fan, and we won't go deep into that.
Yeah, we about had to cut the podcast immediately when we found that out.
Yes.
Trust me, I had second thoughts on even doing this.
Touche.
Very well played. Very well played.
But Josh, to all those entrepreneurs that are out there in our audience that are listening to this show, I want you guys to just tune in for the next hour and hear the stories. And Josh, what we want to do is we want to go back and tell your story first before we get into what you are currently doing and what got you into being an entrepreneur. But, we want to go back to your childhood and tell your journey as far as where did you grow up? What were the family dynamics and through the process?
Yeah, I grew up in a small coastal town called Ventura here in Southern California, and a lot of blue collar town. Working class town. And, most of the people kind of doing the same things, working 9-to-5 jobs, construction and all those types of things. And my parents got divorced when I was really young. I was about 3. And then my mom, it's funny looking back, you kind of don't realize it in the middle of it as a kid, obviously. But my mom, she wasn't an entrepreneur, but she definitely did things like she had a lot of careers in life. She put herself through law school just to support us as I was growing up. And I think being around all that and I was an awful student. I mean, like I hated school with a passion. Even my kids asking me questions now about school, I'm like, I don't know, ask your mom. I have no idea. Even my 4th, 5th graders, like, what can you help me with? I'm like, actually, I can't. If you want me to like fuck up your entire, education, then, but yeah, ask your mother. But yeah, so I was an awful student. My mom, Ivy League graduate, and like I said, put herself through law school, and she would always tell me as a kid, like, you can really do whatever you want. And for me, I guess I actually believed it. I actually believed that I kind of could do anything, and within reason, right? I'm not going to be a safety in the NFL anytime soon, but if there was any other career choices, like I really felt like I could do whatever it took if I could just kind of use my work ethic and be creative and those types of things. And then I did all the normal, played sports through high school, which is what really kept me there, and met my eventual wife. My wife and I have been together since we were 15. We're both 41 now. And awesome. So we met in high school, and I fell in love with surfing in high school. And then ultimately I fell in love with surf films. And right out of high school, I basically was done. I didn't go to college, and I wound up being a surf filmmaker right around 18. And then I made films for the next 12 years of my life. Wow. I was a documentary filmmaker and had a lot of success as a filmmaker, won a lot of film festivals with a couple documentaries, and then wound up making music videos in LA, which was an absolute nightmare. And so like kind of being an entrepreneur and alcohol, I'm not even like a big drinker. So it really kind of came out of nowhere, I think, for everybody except maybe me.
Let's go back. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Let's go back to, okay, so high school, you graduate, you decide not to go to school. Your mom, who was Ivy League educated, went back to law school. What was that, when you made that decision, what was that conversation like with her, or was there a conversation? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, she always supported me, which is crazy, which is where, like whether it's we'll kind of get more into it as the story evolves, but really like when you're younger, it's your parents. And then as you kind of move into, an adult and the different decisions you make, dreams can kind of live and die with your spouse. Right. But that first layer is your folks, right? If you have parents that are around, right? And so for me, my mom, I mean, obviously she said like the normal thing, like what in the hell is a surf film? What does that mean? It sounds like you're unemployed. That's what that sounds like.
I mean, did you move to Santa Cruz, or did you just say it's
that was the thing, was like some of the best surfers in the world in surfing's history have actually come from this Ventura, Santa Barbara County area.
Right.
So it was really a fortunate place to be, to fall in love with that. Which is just luck.
Right.
But my mom, she supported it the whole time. I mean, it wasn't, never really a question.
So Darren, would you ever surf?
Bro, bro, there's sharks somewhere in the ocean. He ain't getting in it.
Black folks, water, sharks. It doesn't add up, dog. It's not happening. But I do have a question about your father. Was your father in your life early on?
Yeah, he was. I think, I think my dad, so the funny thing, kind of the more of the backstory is I was adopted at 6 months. And, being now I have 3 kids, and kind of looking back, I think maybe my dad, he was around, but I think was more about himself than me. Right. So he never really became that father that was, the kind of dad that I am, that's there and
selfless,
supportive and like unconditional love no matter what. And they're my priority. Right. And Janine and the kids are my priority. And that was never the case for him, so I think, like I said, when you're in the middle of it, it's not as glaring, right? You see maybe the way other, dads interact with their kids, but it's not really until you have kids where you go, wow, what a disappointment that was.
Yeah. So I want to just kind of throw a pin in this, and I want to come back to it. But the idea of passion, you said, I fell in love with surfing, and I figured out a way to make a living in it, be successful. I want to come back to that. But, chronologically here, you said it's Janine, right? You said your girlfriend. So you met Janine at 15. Dude, just walk us through that, right? Like I always love hearing that story of the connection between two people that are so impactful on each other's lives.
Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with her first day of health class. Freshman year, she opened the door and it was like that. I'm like, holy shit.
Light behind her, wind blowing in her hair.
Yeah. Like Dreamweaver, the whole 9 yards. But I think, we became, kind of the typical story. We became friends, and she was only interested in dating older guys, of course, our freshman and sophomore year. And then I like to think that she finally saw the light. And
so what you're saying is early on you had no game.
Oh, you were friend zoned. Were you friend zoned? Were you in the friend zone for the first 2 years?
She was like, I mean, he's just in love with me, and it's kind of
it's cute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, cute. And he's kind of husky. He's a little.
I feel you on that one, Josh. I feel you on that one.
When the older guys that I date break up with me, he's so good to go watch a movie with.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, what a sweetheart. We're watching Can't Buy Me Love and Ferris Bueller. But yeah, so she, and then obviously once I got a girlfriend, she was like, oh,
wait a minute,
you're not supposed to. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. Advice to those young boys that are in the friend zone. go get another girlfriend. Because honestly,
that's all it is.
It's a sure thing. Like you'll find out if there's ever a shot. Like if you ever have a shot, that'll clarify. Okay, so you guys do start dating at end of high school. Is that about right? If you met at 15, a couple years, end of high school. Walk us through kind of that, and then as you roll out of high school into this new career that you found.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had like a lot of people have a hard time with high school. I mean, we, aside from my grades being not so amazing, playing water polo, and she was a captain cheerleader, and I won homecoming, and so did she. And like, we kind of had like the classic kind of story together. And, awesome. It was kind of the start of, I think Janine, she's been really the only one through all of this that has always supported me no matter what. She's never said, what if it doesn't work out? What if this or what if that? Like, I've been really, really blessed in that way that, she's been supportive, no questions asked. And I think that's probably pretty rare.
Yeah. So let's go back and what was that like as far as that relationship? Because we hear a lot of these stories about your wife being on board early on, and Tyler has a great story of his journey in which his wife was
ride or die.
She was ride or die. Like she paid for everything. He was trying to live his dream. Did she have any aspirations to go on to college? Did Janine have any? Okay, so what did that look like?
Yep. Yeah, so I made my first film down here in San Diego, and she went to San Diego State. So it kind of worked out that way. There's a pro surfer here from Carlsbad. His name's Taylor Knox, and I made a documentary on his life story when I was 20, and that's kind of like what started everything.
That's awesome.
And then she graduated from college, and her mom got sick with cancer, and we moved back to Ventura, and I wound up making a documentary on the history of modern surfing and Kelly Slater's life story and Tom Curran and
love it.
Some of the others. And that's what just won a lot of film festivals and kind of started really, really going.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So what was it about filmmaking that drew you in? You talked about being into surfing, and then you didn't want to go to college, but what was it about filmmaking that drew you in, you think?
I think it's the same with brands now. I really enjoy telling stories. I really enjoy like the human stories. Everybody has, I think there's so many inspirational stories, from folks that are celebrities or not celebrities, right? I think I've always enjoyed talking to people and hearing about them. I'm not like a big networking person. I'm awful at it, and I do not like it. I hate if I'm at an event, I'm in the back and leaving in as fast as humanly possible. So
sounds like Ben.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you're describing me to a T.
Yeah, I'm not.
Dad?
Everybody. Where'd he go? I'm famous for that. Just checking out, not saying bye, and
the Irish goodbye.
But I think. Yeah. So I think, for me, but just storytelling, I enjoy telling people stories and it's fun to be inspired. Like it's fun to have that feeling when you see something and something really moves you and gets you going. Right. So I like being the one to be able to do that for folks.
So these were films and documentaries that you were producing. Were these films profitable?
Actually, I started making a living as a filmmaker when I was 26.
Okay.
To where that was it, I was, so I was bartending in Santa Barbara to make the film, on Kelly and Tom. And then from there, the budgets I would get, I was making a living, was supporting Janine and I. We were married at that point already.
So, this is cool to hear. Because there's a huge gap between graduating high school and starting to make money in film. There's that 7-8 year gap right there. So I'm curious how you approach.
We're gonna marinate here for a while, just so you know.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me. How you kept that dream alive while just trying to survive, essentially, and trying to make money. How did you know that dream was worth pursuing when the results weren't there in the moment, or at least the monetary result?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is too is with these films, they take a while. right? The documentary I'm speaking about, it took 2 years. You're telling 35 years of history on like a shoestring budget, and you're kind of working, other jobs to make it happen, and you got to travel, and so it was. I think you can kind of stay focused because the film's not done yet, right? But I think the difference was I until I started making money making movies, I never asked about making money. Right. It wasn't about that. Like my first 5 years, I made no money. Like but I never even asked. Right. Like I started my career working for a guy named Taylor Steele, who is a surf filmmaker. And I traveled around the world filming the best surfers in the world. And I never made any money. But I didn't care. Yeah. I just wanted to be a part of it and kind of start my career that way. And I think, but, for me, I've never been driven by money, even with, the success I've had later in life. The motivation has never been money. It's always been to compete.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to that pin, right? That passion aspect is, and especially in the entrepreneurial field, especially, but I feel like our culture is so ingrained and hardwired, right? To pick a career. We had a conversation the other day, pick a career early on, and that's what you got to do. And you don't ever take into account what your gifts are, what your passions are. And it is a little cliche, so I'm not going to act like I'm reinventing the wheels. But like, follow your passion and you won't work a day in your life, that whole deal. But really, I think that takes a level of self-trust to continue pursuing that. And with harder times, with working 2 jobs, with, trying to raise money for a film that you've got to make and ask people, all the things that go into, entrepreneurship or whatever, you're doing filmmaking, whatever it may be. But you're going through that time. There has to be hard times too, right? Was there any times through that you were like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep pushing through this? Or, was it, I don't care. I just love it. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah. I would say the reverse of that is how many of them were the good times? In my businesses now, I always tell people there's moments of fun, right there. And the rest is stressful and taxing and fucking hard. And so, when I was younger, I felt like I just kept working at it. And I think there's things that drive you too. I think what in a lot of ways, I think the attention that I didn't get from my dad was, I was doing these, things that were maybe a little bit bigger than the average person, right? You're making movies and then ultimately going into, creating these massive alcohol businesses, really like looking for approval. I didn't really notice it in the moment, but I think that's what I was looking for. And by making films, if you make a film that somebody likes, they say, wow, that was so amazing, or you did such a great job, or this and that. Whereas with maybe like a typical 9-to-5 job, like most of my friends have, people aren't patting you on the back for how amazing you were that day. Yeah. And I think the insecurity in me was looking for that. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what drove me to, kind of be outside the box successful. And I always had a lot of self-confidence in, when people say, are you so surprised at, the success you've had? And in no arrogant way at all, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Like that was I always knew I would do something that would not be kind of like a mundane life. Like that wasn't for me.
So have you all, we talked earlier about this, and this is one of the questions I have for so many entrepreneurs that are out there. Do you think you're born an entrepreneur? You think it's just in you to be an entrepreneur, or a worker bee? Is that do you think you're just born with those qualities?
Yeah, I think it's a personality. You guys could probably imagine how many people say like they want me to like tell them one magic sentence and like give them the magic pill, and then I say something inspirational, and they go, "That's it, I'm doing it. I'm going to go create Netflix or whatever." Like that's. But I think it really, being an entrepreneur in a lot of ways is like your personality. right? Do you have that personality that has the ability to lead folks and have them believe in your vision, whether they're employees or investors or, whoever it is you're doing, that's God-given, right? Whether you have those qualities or not. And I think I think people read the magazines and they see the things on TV, or they listen to these podcasts and they go, I want to be an entrepreneur, but your personality is just not that. You're not that person. I've somehow raised almost $50 million over the last 8 years, and it's from folks like us. I've not one venture capital firm, nothing. And so that's like, and then once you have a win, and I sold my first beer company to Coors, then what happens? And a lot of the reason why I even sold it to them was to see how I would feel. Would you want to buy more houses and Bentleys, or do you want to come back to the beginning and compete at the highest level? And like when people say, like it sounds nice to say that I don't give a fuck about the money because you don't want to sound like an egotistical prick. Yeah. Right. But like, do you really mean it? And it's easy to say you don't care about the money when you have no chance of making any.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So Ben asks this all the time, and it's like it's such a great question, but when you got there, how did you feel? When you sold the company, you made the money. Was it anything and everything that you thought it would be?
No, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything. I didn't and I thought something was like wrong. Yeah. I'd never, I didn't like, even when we bought the house and, our life changed right overnight. And, money just wasn't really something we worried about anymore. But then it adds other layers of issues, right? That come along with it. But really, from what I felt like, I just wanted to win. And I think that was ultimately why it didn't work out with Coors, was I wanted to win by any means necessary, and they didn't. And so I left, and they said, "You're leaving? We pay you tons of money. We just paid you tons of money." And I said, "I don't give a shit. I want to win, and you don't." So that's it. Good luck.
Wait, was it a situation where you had to be in the office? Did you have to, let me ask, have you ever had to be in the office and buttoned up? No. You knew where I was going with this, right? Yeah. You're not corporate America, correct?
No, they tried to give me a key card and put it on my office door. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not scanning the key card. And don't ask me for receipts on the Amex either. Just pay the bill.
Just pay the bill.
Yeah. I'll give you the login and you figure it out.
Just hit pay. That's all you got to know, man.
Yeah, we just kind of Quentin Tarantino'd the story a little bit.
Crazy.
I think that's the right. Isn't that the producer that starts at the end and jumps
around?
Yeah. We skipped a big part of your life here, so let's talk about how you went from filmmaker, surf films, skateboard films, all that. Maybe let's talk through that transition into becoming the entrepreneur and that whole process.
Yeah, it was really a simple story. I went on a surf trip to Puerto Rico with a couple of my friends that were on tour, and a tequila brand approached them about investing in the company and being an ambassador for them. And they asked me what I thought, and I said, tequila, I'm not sure I really see it. And no professional athletes are drinking energy drinks, right? As much as Red Bull and Monster would love you to think they are.
This one does.
I'm not a professional athlete anymore. So
in the middle of it.
You're right.
Yeah, guys aren't. Our boy Dak is not drinking a Red Bull.
100%.
Right.
100%.
Right.
Correct.
So I said, why don't you do a beer? I mean, everybody drinks beer for the most part, whether you have one a day or one every 6 months. A beer, that seems easy. And better yet, why don't you do a craft beer? Like, all of us drink those from time to time. And, you live in San Diego. It's the craft beer capital of the U.S.
For sure.
And I thought to myself, craft beer. How come that has never come from our culture of skateboarding and surfing and, film and art and photography, kind of the real culture of California, not so much the board shorts and Malibu bullshit that some of these brands put out there. That's just not.
You mean Hurley's
real.
not super authentic?
I'm gonna
Billabong?
I gotta hide my Quicksilver tag here.
Not anymore. Nike ruined that one. But I think, you know, and I said, I mean, I'm going to do it. I can do a craft beer. I mean, how hard can it be? It was hard. It was fucking really hard. And that was it. I was not a brewer. I didn't know anybody in the beer business. I didn't know anything about beer. And I definitely didn't know what a capital raise was.
Yeah. Talk to us about the capital raise. We got to hear how this, and I know you've been very successful in your raises.
Yeah. I just went, I mean, so I thought about it for a little bit, a couple of weeks, and I went home and told Janine, hey, I'm going to do St. Archer, and we're going to move to San Diego, and I'm going to do what's called a capital raise. And I'm going to build a craft brewery down there, and we're moving. And my daughter was 3.5 and my oldest son was 6 months old. And she said, I'll find us a place to live. And
no questions. Just, okay, I'll find us a spot.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so I came down here and somehow raised $3 million. And I think this is kind of where the personality comes in, right? Like, I think I always tell people that that's the main question, right? How did you raise that first $3 million? Because then once you're successful, it gets easier.
Yeah. Sure.
But that first $3 million was, you know, if you think about the story right now, I'm talking to you guys and we're talking about St. Archer. I'm like, listen, fellas, I just moved my family down here. I'm building this brewery. Here's the deck. You guys love the way it looks. You love the brand. You understand it. Right. And I'm in the deep end. They're like, this dude has no money. He just put everything he has into the business. He moved his family away from the only town that they know. This fucking thing has to work.
Right.
You know, like, and that's the kind of dude you go, I got 25 grand.
Yeah.
I got 10 grand. In some cases, I got 100 grand. And just one person, like somebody would say yes. And then I'd say, hey, do you know anybody that, you know? And then the first like 500,000 or so was, you know, pro skaters and surfers and snowboarders. And I think when you get, you know, a lot of the best guys on board, that's exciting to folks. But the simple fact is there was really no reason for them to be investing in me to build a craft brewery. Like I said, I'm not a brewer. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything about anything. Right? Like I don't know anything.
Had you made a single beer yet at this point?
No.
Okay. So you didn't have little tasters or samples?
No.
Why would I do that, Tyler?
I'll give you guys a story. And I haven't really, some people know this, but I haven't really told it on a podcast, but I'll give you this one.
Exclusive content. Here we go.
So we get into this capital raise and folks say the obvious question, hey, I'd love to try it. And I'm all, shit, I didn't think of that.
I give the last bit to the last guy.
You want to try what?
I'm like, what do you want to drink the beer for? I'm telling you it's going to be good. I'm telling you about it. We got all these like pro surfers. We're good. And people were like, no. Seriously, we need to try the fucking beer. Like if you want me to give you 25 grand, we need to try the beer. And I'm like, dude, okay. So I'm at Trader Joe's and I'm like, you know, shopping or whatever and looking at the beer. And then I'm looking at their beer and I'm like, hey, I'm looking at it and should I buy it? And I'm like, and then I pull the bottle out and it's like the paper label.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, these paper labels just come off.
Just soak these in the sink and they'll roll right off.
So
we'll edit this out. Don't worry.
I raised about $3 million on Trader Joe's beer.
Trader Joe's beer.
Oh my God.
That's straight up by any means
classic. By any means necessary.
That is amazing.
And that's what you talk about. It's your personality, man.
Yes. That is a true. That's an entrepreneur.
Any means necessary.
After we got the rate, go ahead.
Is it ethically towing the line? Yes.
It's a representation of what you were going to.
That's right. This is just an
like,
example.
Yeah, I mean, did people say, so this is St. Archer? You bet your ass.
All right, how do I replicate
I'm going to do my best to make it taste like this.
No, I think I think when you got a couple kids at home and you just kind of risked everything, I think some people are willing to go all the way.
Yeah.
And like I was in the deep end, and for me, losing is not an option.
Yeah.
Man.
And so that was kind of the first sign to myself, like, damn, you really are willing to do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a validating thing too, we can laugh about it now, but like it was a real thing. I'm like, I know this brand is going to be successful. I know I'm going to be able to hire a couple brewers who make good beer. Like, I'm doing it. Doing it. I have to get this thing off the ground.
So let's talk about that, because beer is nothing new, right? There's tons of beer companies out there. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about breaking into an industry that is, it's not like you're inventing anything. How did you go about that? I mean, I know you were going after a different niche, whatever that word is.
Sort of. Yeah.
So context, what year was this when you went through your race?
This is about 10 years ago.
Okay. So it's still on the front end of that craft beer craze, right? Like that's before.
Kind of at the tail end, to be honest.
Was it? Okay.
It was,
Tyler, my question was valid.
Sorry, stupid. I apologize. I'm embarrassed.
It was No. It was at the tail end of kind of like where it was just going vertical, right? Like it was, but it was right before companies started getting acquired.
I was going to say like Ballast Point, for example.
Probably most importantly, we sold 2 months before them.
Okay.
So like, it was, I mean, I think for me, when I was in Ventura and I had the idea and I would be looking at the beer shelves, I would say, gosh, brands like Ballast Point or Stone or Sierra Nevada or, these huge breweries, I would say, I don't know anything about them. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know anything about them. And, coming from skateboarding and surfing, I know everything about Vans and I know everything about Supreme and I know everything about, right. Whether your friends created those brands or Volcom or any of the ones that our friends have started, the fans of skateboarding and surfing know the story behind Quicksilver and Hurley and like all of these different things. And in beer, you don't know anything. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, how is this it's selling just because it's here? That's ridiculous. And if that is the case, I can out-brand everything on this shelf.
Yes.
I just have a better eye for what I think looks good. And the only difference between St. Archer and everything else was brand. Yeah, we launched the brand with a blonde ale, a pale ale, and an IPA, the 3 most generic craft beers in the country. And we became the fastest growing craft beer overnight in the U.S.
Is that because? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was all brand, right? When you're, that's what I've done, and I look at categories. You look at multi-billion-dollar categories. If you just go to a grocery store, you can put yourself through that and go look at the bread and the cheese and the milk and you look at all of these different categories. They're all multi-billions, and all of them are asleep at the wheel. Yeah, right? Like, I mean, they're asleep at the wheel. And I think you can really exploit that if you have the vision and the balls to do it.
So maybe get in a little bit to that example, and without maybe giving away your secret sauce, if you want to keep that close to your chest. But what in the craft beer or beer industry, what did you see was the gap? Just because there was no story associated with it, you wanted to tell the story. Just real branding, like having promoting an aspirational life that people connect to, that they associate with your brand. It's nothing new. It's like the Marlboro Man in the 70s. It's like it's nothing new. It's nothing that like apparel and shoes and cars and in a lot of cases alcohol and cigarettes they've been doing for years. But craft beer hadn't done it, just like hard seltzer hadn't done it. Right. So like it just hadn't happened. And so I just took all of those lessons from, I mean, St. Archer could have been a clothing business. Right. It just so happened to be a craft beer.
Right. you had a great audience as well. You were working day to day with the audience that you were building it around. So
I am the audience.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say is you understood who you were after because it was you.
Yep. Yep. It was me. And it was just what I was into. And I think like, having dealt with bigger brands like, Coors or Bud or, those, they go through all these focus groups and they do all right. Like, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. I create the brands that I like and my friends like and my family likes. If nobody else likes it, they can fuck off.
Love it.
Like, I don't.
Authenticity though,
don't.
right?
Yes.
That's what we're craving that. We really are.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's looking for.
Yeah.
Right?
Love that. So you mentioned you blew up overnight. You're the fastest growing craft brewery brand in the country. So you're new to that industry per se. What was that learning curve like? And how did you adjust to the massive growth that you were experiencing? And how did you find the right team to put around you?
Yeah, it was hard. I was going from being a filmmaker to, I'm like a CEO of a business and like managing a business. And, in the end, we had 80 some odd employees. And I learned all that on the fly. Like I said, I just put myself into the deep end and I was comfortable managing people and articulating my vision and holding people to certain standards to follow through with that vision. Right. And I think when you have that type, it goes back to personality. When I sit in front of folks and, try and recruit them to come work with me, people see that and they feel the warmth and authenticity and they can, visualize what I'm trying to do. And that was a really big deal.
What was the first thing you had to do? You started your business, right? So, and I get it. You had the marketing side of it. You understood who your group was that you're going to be marketing to. But as a business, as a CEO, what was probably the most important decision you made?
I fired our first brewer, graphic designer, and VP of sales a month before we launched the brand.
Oh,
wow! So good morning.
Good morning. Wow, that was a wake up call.
Didn't know you were going there.
Yeah. So I think I knew they weren't right. And I think it was kind of one of those validating times for me too, knowing that I had the courage to do that. You're kind of, in a lot of ways, they're going to view you like you're ruining their life, right? Because no one takes any accountability when you fire them.
Right.
And like I was willing to do that. And I knew they weren't right and ultimately found the people that were.
How hard was that though? I mean, that you just said it a little bit right there. That was kind of, something that's edgy on your end because, it's first role.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard. The people that go, I don't care, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Of course people do.
Right.
Like I think it was, I'd never done it before. I'd never fired anybody. And I always have kept it short and sweet but it's hard. It's hard. What you're doing to them and like, they got to go home and tell their wives or significant other, like I just got fired and they have kids and it's, but I, because of those first, 3 times, I really, in a lot of ways, distanced myself from the staff. Yeah. And, being a CEO of a business is a lonely place, man. Yeah. It's a lonely place. It can be really lonely. And that's what one of the investors told me early on. I didn't understand until I was in it, but it's, you kind of, everything stops with you. And there's some CEOs that are high fives all the time and excited. That's not me. I don't really want to get attached because I know, like with football. Yeah. Like the front office, they don't want to know how your kids are doing. Yeah. Because they need to be able to cut you or trade you at any second. Right. That's right. And so it's the same type deal. Like you're fired and we've never been to a barbecue together, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Belichick. I mean, and I love Jason Garrett, but like, let's look at results, right? There's Belichick that look, I'm your boss. Yep. Like there's no question about the role that I play in this. And there's no question about the role where, maybe another situation, the lines get blurred a little bit. Right. And I get that. Yeah. But let me go to that. you were not like necessarily jaded by the corporate structure and corporate world and how CEOs are supposed to act. You got to create your own path. What was that culture that you envisioned St. Archer having, saying, I got a blank canvas, I can do what I want because I don't care about what anybody else says?
Yeah, I really never focused on, I think like, for me, I was just focused on winning.
Yeah.
And really having the blinders on to like, I hired people to do the day-to-day management of folks. Now I have it really down. I work with the same people that are my closest friends in the world. And now it's just trusting folks at this point. But like back then I was just so focused on winning and driving the brand forward that, we didn't really do much of anything from a culture perspective. I think, in a lot of ways, my intensity and maybe people's fear of what I would say or do in certain situations maybe kept them in line.
Right.
And,
we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Fear is a good thing.
Yeah. Fear is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I think, and I think with the unknown is scary. And so when they don't see me all the time and they're like, is he mad or sad or happy or,
right.
I think when they don't know what the vibe is and they just got to work hard and kind of hang on,
right.
You kind of can get the best work out of folks.
Right.
Yeah.
When they get too comfortable, that's when things start to slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man,
yes.
two things are sticking out to me as I'm sitting here listening to you talk about you that are just overwhelming about you. Is number one, your competitiveness. I mean, you've dropped that word 2 or 3 times. You're talking about winning. And then number two, you're not afraid to step into something you don't really know the answers to. And to me, that is so admirable because I'm learning how to do that. But typically I'm the guy, I've got to get all the answers. I've got to research. I've got to learn before I step in. What's cool about hearing your story is like, I don't know anything about brewery. I don't know nothing. I'm going to move my family and we're going to get after it.
Yeah.
And I love hearing that. Want to take a quick break from the episode and tell you guys about a brand new partnership. Because you guys listen to the podcast, companies are now coming to us and wanting to be a part of this. Yeah. And that's 100% because of you guys. So wanted to tell you about an exciting new partnership.
Man, this is a great partnership, and it's a long-time friendship that I've had with Choctaw Casino and Resort, located in Durant, Oklahoma, just across the Red River here. Easy drive, great people, great resort. The new renovations going on. Got a fantastic pool that's outside. So if you got kids, if you have kids, or if you just want to get away alone with your wife, your girlfriend, whatever, your partner, doesn't matter what it is, go over to Choctaw Casino and Resort. Have a great time. Again, we always talk about relationships on this podcast. We have a great relationship with Walter Allen, who's over there, and the people over at Choctaw Casino have just been wonderful.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't have a wife and a girlfriend at the same time.
Yeah, a little bit of both, but have a good time anyway.
But yeah, like Darren said, go check them out, Choctaw Casino and Resort. Now back to the episode.
And I think that's what I was saying, though. Even if I, having that type of personality, Janine, could have said, "Are you out of your mind?
Right? We're
not moving to San Diego. We have 2 kids." I'm like, "What do you mean? We're not going anywhere." And I think that would happen in a lot of cases, And I think it's interesting when people maybe hear that and they go, "I mean, how supportive really are you? Are you supportive because your husband or wife, it's not an option to even be supportive, right? They're not going anywhere. So it's real easy to say you are.
Right.
Right. But if you were really presented with that and they wanted to make a change and really kind of flip things on its head, would you really be down or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't even say, I'm not sure what I would have done if the roles were reversed, I don't know, but I think, me, kind of having that support system and then having that, it's funny is I have anxiety and fear in my personal life, but in my business life, I have zero.
Really?
It's like the mechanism's not there.
Something
which
like
is
that.
bizarre.
Yeah, that's an athlete,
like,
though.
So it's like, so let me get this straight. You're scared to fly, but you're not scared to negotiate a deal with Budweiser in the middle of it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's. I think but that goes back to the kind of the God-given deal, right?
Yeah.
You can't learn that at school. I don't care where you go.
Oh, that is so true, man. It speaks to like the athletes that are out there in the world as well. They have this mindset where they'll run through a wall. And you don't have to tell them anything. They're just going to hit the biggest guy and they'll compete and fight. And then they get off the field and they can't get in front of a CEO and have a conversation because they're freaking scared, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it. I want to walk through this situation because I know there's a lot of listeners that probably want to hear the fact of how, when you went about selling the company.
Yeah. $100 million sticks out.
Yeah. Walk us through how that went. I mean, was there a call? Did you get a call late at night, or were you proactive in making calls, or what? How did that happen?
I mean, I think in a lot of cases you got to go out and get it, you know? And so I raised 10 million through the first 2 years, and I needed 10 more million. And, I got an offer for $30 million for the business. And I said, I mean, I know it's only been 2 years, but could we really sell the business and like partner someone and kind of really take this brand to a national level? Like that was my goal. And so I hired an investment banker and I put together a deck and made a film kind of telling the story, and we sent it out to 5 different breweries. And I think typically you would have your investment banker go and kind of represent you. And I didn't do that. I did it all.
Wow.
I negotiated the deals, and like you said, we wound up selling it for almost triple that to Coors about 3 months later.
How were they? Wait a minute. So you had an offer at about 30, right?
Yeah.
What was that conversation with your investors?
Or your wife.
Or the wife,
I didn't even tell them.
There's a reason I'm the CEO and founder of this company.
Yeah.
You are not.
I
love it.
Shit, man.
You just take your check and be happy about it.
Yeah. And the brand was worth more than that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody believed that.
Yeah.
So I knew they'd say, hey, if that's there, like, let's go see what else is out there. Yeah. And fortunately for us, we were able to get it done. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a crazy deal.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that, being a CEO is a lonely place, but my very limited knowledge of the alcohol industry is its own kind of world, right? It's distribution network, it's laws that are associated with it. How did you learn? Did you have someone that you eventually found, or did you just figure it out yourself?
Figured it out myself. Yeah. Just as I went along and tried to talk to as many people as I could. And in craft beer, I mean, it is a very, I think for most folks that are starting a craft brewery, it's a very welcoming place if you kind of go the way that everybody wants you to go, where there's like the local breweries that do well, and then you kind of talk to them. And I never did that. I never really gave a fuck what any of them felt or thought about what I was doing. And I was trying to sell beer to the masses. So I was selling beer at the hotels and at the beaches and where the 95 percentile was. And I never went and tried to kiss people's ass to kind of get them to accept my beer business. And it might have rubbed people the wrong way, but in the end, I changed people's lives that invested in me, and I would do it 100 times out of 100.
All right.
That's awesome.
All right. So you sell St. Archer, right?
Yeah.
And what was the next step? When did you sit back for a while and think, okay, well, I'm gonna sit on my ass and enjoy?
So part of the deal was you stayed on board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was supposed to stay for 5 years.
All right. So you had a 5-year contract.
Yep. And then we got 18 months in, and like I said, it just, what I wanted and what they wanted just wasn't adding up. And I think I think there's that, it's like the typical story where, they want to go a certain speed or they want to go in a certain direction, and I don't. All
right. So was there a non-compete?
Most people.
I'm sorry.
There was. Yeah, no, all good. There was for 2 years, and And then I just left and we started I started an organic coconut water and organic kids juice business called Villager and Little Villager. And did that for about 3 years, and then started a alcohol distribution business here in San Diego called Scout, and then another brewery called Harlan, and a wine business called Claxton. And then about a year later, I founded Ashland Hard Seltzer.
So are those other brands, are those still active?
All of them are, yes.
Okay.
So Villager, kind of going through COVID, the brand was doing well, and I think the investors were a little bit fatigued, and it was really hard for us to raise capital through the summer. Yeah. And instead of the brand taking a loss, I decided to pivot the business and turn it into a ready-to-drink cocktail called Villager Spirits, which launches in June here in Southern California.
Nice. All right. Very nice.
Yeah. So I think, for me, I think that, when you I think if you're a business owner and you sell your business, you typically would just stay with St. Archer. Right. And you would ride your career out and go to the beach and buy a couple more cars and, that's it. But for me, I started, 6 or 7 more businesses.
And that's what I was trying to get to, is wondering, because there's a lot of people that have sold their businesses and then they're done for a little bit and then they're back on it. And people always ask that question, man, you just sold your business for $100 million. What the hell are you doing? So is it just built? How old will you be, Josh, and still working?
Forever. I'm not gonna. Me retiring, it's like, you might as well just put a gun in my mouth, man. Like that's like, it's just it's like, I'm just not. That's not for me. Yeah. Right. Like it's just not. It's not for me. It doesn't need to be. I've kind of figured it out now. Right. It's not as crazy as it used to be, and we have great people, and kind of I know how to do these things now. So it's pretty well streamlined. It's still really hard and dramatic and stressful and all those types of things. But, I think I enjoy doing it. It really has nothing to do with the money. If it did, I would have just quit after St. Archer. Yeah. But I never, I'd never really been, I'd never felt anything through all of the success. And people always ask where did it, when did you finally go, I did it, or that was amazing. And most people think it's from money or the material, but for me, it came about a year ago. Just recently, where, my mom, like I said, was from Philadelphia. And when I was a kid, that was the one trip we did. We'd go back and see our family around Christmas. And if I was lucky enough, we'd go to a game at the Vet. And I'd look at the stadium as we're flying in. And as a little kid, I remember, 4 or 5 years old. And then I was going back just before COVID and having dinner with Howie and kind of just catching up and going through the Ashland business. And I'm looking out the window and looking at Lincoln Financial going, I'm 41 years old, and, the GM and vice president of the Eagles is an investor, and I'm flying back here to meet. I did it.
I did it.
That's awesome, man.
And it wasn't it wasn't anything material. It was my childhood favorite sports team, and how that kind of came full circle. Yeah. And now he probably wishes never met me, because I'm like, dude, what is going on with Carson? Why the fuck did we fire Doug? What? And just hammering him constantly. Right. But I think. But that was it for me. That was the moment where I went, dude, everything from here is kind of gravy. That's awesome.
So what brings you joy now? Because we just had this conversation about money and how it doesn't actually do for you what you think it's going to do. Your life's not all of a sudden just peaches and rainbows. It's cool for a second and then you just move on. So what brings you joy day to day?
Probably, the Birds getting Devontae Smith at 10.
Woo! You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, we gift wrap that one for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think for me, it's it's the simple, it's the little things. It really, money has caused it. in a lot of ways it's made things easier. In a lot of things it's made things more personally challenging. You know, you when you have it, people treat you differently. And, you know, like my dad showing up at my house and asking me for money. I hadn't seen him in 5 years. Yeah. You know, I've had people ask me for cars and yeah, dude, you got, you know what I mean?
Darren, you can't relate to that.
And I think and that's, you know, it's a bummer, you know, it makes you view people, you get a little bit more withdrawn. At least I did. Like I instead of like going out and seeking more attention, I wanted to just stay home more and kind of just not deal with the bullshit and the small talk and the, you know, people asking for things. Right. And so for me, it's the simple stuff now, just being with the kids at the beach and kind of trying to relax as much as I can and, you know, surf or go for a swim and, spending time with Janine and the kids, like it, and it really nothing material. Like it's fun to go on vacation, but I don't think anyone, I think most of the people that I know that are successful are miserable, you know, like they, you know, the cars and the houses and the stuff and most of them are depressed, you know, like, and I've been there through businesses, the anxiety, and I've had mild depression. I've been through all of that. Yeah. You know, at least I'm just feel blessed that I never thought to myself, once I make this money, then everything will go away.
Right.
I knew it was going to take work for me to kind of get myself to a kind of even keeled place. And it's been a lot of work and meditation and, you know, believing in God and all those things has been a huge deal for me.
So talk to us about balance. Cause as an entrepreneur, that idea almost seems to be foreign. Right. And I don't, somebody explained it to me one time and I truly in my heart believe it. It was Matt Chandler. He's a pastor here in Dallas. And I asked him that, and cause I was struggling. I just transitioned from football into a new career. I am struggling with balance, but he said, there's no such thing. Balance, by its definition on a scale, the weights are still. And they don't move. Yep. Life is always changing. There's ebbs and flows. There's always this. But for you, as you're going through this, how did you manage family, business, personal time, or didn't you? And learning it later in life.
I mean, the 2 years of St. Archer were the hardest 2 years of my marriage. Yeah. It was, you know, that's the stuff people don't see. Yeah, you know, like that's what. You know, they see the success of the brand or, you know, they see success on the field or whatever it is. And they think everything is amazing and it's just not right. Like, you know, those nights where, you know, Janine's crying and doesn't want me to go and the kids are going nuts and she's frustrated and then you go to work anyway. Yeah. And like, that's the stuff. And I don't even know how proud of that I am. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think people, it's funny because people are applauded for being kind of these, intimidating, competitive, like hard driving assholes in business. But really, if you think about those personality qualities, that sounds awful. That doesn't sound like someone you want to be around. That's not someone you want your kids to date and eventually marry. Like, that's not what you're trying to be as a person. At least I'm not trying to be that person. And so I think, you know, being self-aware and really it's not balance. It's really just taking everything one day at a time now. Yeah. And like, you know, you can't fix all the problems. You can't make everybody happy. You can't like win everything in one day. Like you can't just one day at a time, man.
Yeah. And those are like, those are the bumps and the obstacles that you face being an entrepreneur. And it's the reality of what it is. And everyone's not built to be this. And that's the reality. Everyone's not built to be an entrepreneur. But I do have a question for you because you brought up the joy in your life and you brought up your kids. What kind of father are you going to be as far as business? We'll go back to the other part. But as far as business, are you going to bring your kids into the business world and give them an understanding of what that looks like?
They're already very well versed. I think for me, where education didn't really do anything for me And of course, I'm like, I didn't go, but you are, and shut up, right? But I think for me, the way I look at it is, I always tell them, if you can be taught what it's really like on the street and in real life, and you can also have a classroom education, and you're pretty tough to beat.
Right,
like it's but really learning in the streets and what the real world is the most important thing. It's and they go to meetings with me. They've been in my Coors meeting. My daughter goes when we have different distributor, she goes and she sits right next to me, and people will say like, "Hey, what's your daughter doing here?" And I'm like, "The fuck are you doing
shut
here?
the fuck up.
Don't worry about my daughter's doing it. I'll fucking leave in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Get your eyes off my daughter."
Yeah. So don't worry about her, man.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, but it's invaluable. And I think it's important too, for them to see what their dad does and because really the kids, you guys know, they kind of grow up and we try and, give them everything, but in a lot of ways that's fantasy land, like I didn't grow up like that. And, I didn't grow up with the things my kids have. So at the least they could come with me and go, and this grind that I'm on for all this is real, and you guys are going to appreciate it.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit. How you keep them hardened, if you will, because they're obviously growing up in a much different situation than you. So how do you keep them calloused in their mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just we constantly talk about it, and I think I don't hide how hard things are. I don't try and make things look perfect, and I think all of our closest friends are working class folks. I think that they live in a very nice area, but I think Janine and I come from nothing. When we got married, we sold our wedding presents. They know what it took to get here. And I think, like, I always tell them, I mean, this is the 1%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, chances are this isn't even in the cards for you guys. Which is okay. Right? You don't have to be like me this doesn't equal happy. Right. But to get this, it requires an extreme amount of sacrifice and perseverance. And it's not for everybody, like it's not for everybody, but I think, there's little things that you can do that I think, would it be nice for them to be driving a, $50,000 car for their first car? Sure. Would I ever do that? There's no chance in hell.
No.
Right?
I bought my daughter's first car 5 years ago, by the way. She's 9.
I mean, my first car was $1,500, and the glove box used to fall off of my wife's legs.
My first car was a minivan. I feel you.
Isn't it funny? You guys see these kids driving around. They're driving around like $100,000 whip, and you're like, where do you even go from there?
There is no way up, man.
Really, though, two of the worst areas in the country, San Diego and Dallas. I mean,
it's true.
It's crazy.
It's
stuff that
it's insane.
Man.
Well, it's insane. It's gross.
Yes, that's the right word.
And that's what I think. I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, 2 boys, and that's what I think about constantly. Is they're growing up in a different way than I did. So how do I keep the perspective? How do I expose them? You come from a poor neighborhood, you want to be exposed to wealth. You come from a quote unquote, upper class, whatever.
Wealthy, say what it is. You live in the richest city in the United States. Go ahead and say it. Let's go.
You've got to, in my opinion, I've got to show them that this isn't the whole world. Like, there's people that live a lot different than we do.
Well, if you think about, just on the day to day, everything starts in the home, right? So the way you speak and treat your spouse and treat your kids, like, that's what they learn. That's what molds them, right? The way manners and the way they speak to other folks and the way they treat other people, it's different than when we were all kids, right? Like the way these kids talk to their folks now, my mom would have slapped the living fucking daylights out.
Crazy.
I mean, dude, it just would have, so there's just, but they see their friends, maybe someone speaks like that. And then, but if they know forever, hey, that's not happening here.
Yeah. Not in this
right.
house.
Like there's, you're going to have respect and that's going to follow through with the rest of your life, hopefully for yourself and other people. But I think it's a lot of hard work being a parent. You know, it's easy to be that parent that just checks out, especially how busy I am, but I don't miss anything. I mean, that's the reason why I'm not there with you. My son's first junior Olympic water polo games tomorrow.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
He has to be there at 6:30, and they're over my dead body. Would I ever miss that?
That's right.
So
I get it.
By the way, I want to validate water polo, by the way. The only time I really feel like I was close to death was when I was in a pool with a water polo player.
Dude,
That's because you're
I can't.
Yeah,
I
you
couldn't
sink.
float for a second.
How many?
All right, come on, let's go. All right, race jokes. Come on, let's go. Let's get it.
I mean,
Throw it all out there. We get it. You black. We get it.
We're going right muzzle, right to the bottom. Like, there's no way that's happening.
But for real, like I have so much respect for those, for you and those athletes, because holy smokes, man,
it's tough. It's a tough sport.
It's crazy. I was a wrestler too, right? And people are like, "Oh, wrestling's tough too." No, wrestle in water, because that's what they do.
All right.
Yeah, it's tough.
Hey,
It's tough.
so what's more difficult, managing and running a $100 million company or raising kids?
I mean, raising kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even. I mean, because you know, at the end, the $100 million company goes out of business. All you got is your wife and kids.
Yeah.
You know, like that never goes away. Like the ones that are doing it right, that never goes away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you gotta put the work in there, and then you'll have a chance to be successful with your business.
Right.
Yeah, we want to ask some questions, that maybe some guidance, advice that you would give to young entrepreneurs. But kind of first, before we get there, I want to kind of wrap up on, for lack of your portfolio, right, of companies. What are you most excited about over the next 5 years about the brands that you have?
I think I'm more excited with the people that I'm working with now. You know, I feel like I said, my closest friends are here. We've been able to hire, because of the success, we've been able to hire the best of the best. Yeah. And I think the more I know what I'm not good at, and I know what I'm good at, but it's more important to know what you suck at. And so when I know there's many things I'm not good at, and I go hire the best of the best and pay them whatever they're worth, and just move on, and you can have that comfort. But now I'm just excited about, you know, kind of getting into a groove with everybody that's here, and developing brands that are leading categories in the U.S. in the alcohol business, with a canned cocktail or a hard seltzer or anything else I kind of think of. I'm excited about that. And I think most excited about, you know, building the brands. That's the fun part.
That's awesome.
So you said you find the things you suck at, you go hire somebody and pay them whatever they're worth to do that. Why don't you try to just go do everything? Why don't you try to go attack those things that you suck at?
Because just stick to the stuff you're good at, you know, like, and just be really fucking good at it.
Right.
And
Breach.
And then everything else, like, why I'd rather be the best, like, leader and overall person driving the company forward, and then all of the day-to-day things, hire the best of the best, because they're not the best leaders, or they would be.
Yeah. So like us three in our dynamic, we're kind of like a married couple, like, and we kind of consider these counseling sessions. So, you know, if you're in like a counseling session, for real. But really, what you are is you're paying that counselor to tell your spouse what they're doing wrong, right? And so that's what a lot of our questions, like if I think of a question, I'm thinking, okay, Ben needs to hear this for sure, or Darren's got to hear this for sure.
We're the most dysfunctional marriage you've ever seen.
I got questions about Ashland. I know there's, like, you know, there's a lot going around that right now. There's a lot of buzz. So tell us a little bit about Ashland.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was, you know, in the summer of 2019, our alcohol distribution business needed a hard seltzer. And, you know, it was really when White Claw started exploding, and Truly was out before them, but really hadn't come out of the gates like White Claw did. And everybody was drinking it. You know, it's one of those things where you can see it, you're like, what? And then it's everywhere. Right. It went from like, what is that, to everyone has it. And case in point of kind of what I was saying about noticing a category and seeing brands asleep at the wheel, like White Claw was a phenomenon, but I think hard seltzer was really replacing beer in a lot of ways, right? Yeah. Where the young people were saying, like when we grew up, you would drink shitty beer in high school and then you'd kind of, maybe step up a little bit. Yeah. Now the young people aren't even getting to beer. No. They're just saying, well, Ashland or White Claw is, 5% alcohol, no sugar, 100 calories. And then us guys our age and gals our age are saying, well, I don't want the sugar because this is your last chance to be like somewhat decently healthy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And, this is it, man. This is our shot. And so I think it really all age demographic, everything, it's for everyone. And I didn't see a brand that people cared about. They White Claw was more of a gimmick. It wasn't something that people were like getting behind. Mm-hmm. And I knew I could create that. And so, like with St. Archer, we had surfers and skaters, like I said, and a lot of them are speaking to the same audience. And over the years, I've been able to meet more folks. And I always said, like, if I ever did another one like that, I'd go get, football players and baseball.
Three washed up football players.
I think 3 washed up football players. Everyone has their place.
Right.
So you kind of go get where you're speaking to all walks of life. And that's what we did, and the brand just like, I've never seen anything like it. The first year we were the fastest growing hard seltzer in the US. And it was, St. Archer at its height, 2.5 years in statewide, California was doing about 100,000 6-packs a month, right around there, right around there. Ashland 6 months in was doing 400,000 6-packs in San Diego.
Wow. Just in San Diego.
It was, yeah.
Jeez.
It was astonishing.
You know what?
It was.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. Obviously, maybe getting into a pandemic and it's acceptable for people to get wasted at 10 a.m. and put it on the gram helped.
But that's the thing about seltzer, right? Is you don't get judged by drinking like a hard seltzer in the day, right? Like it's kind of that day. You get the day fade with the hard seltzer. Like that's culturally good.
Yeah,
guess what? There's more hours. But there's more hours of sunlight. So if you want to attack that drinking window, that's a bigger window.
It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And I think there's been a lot of brands that have come out around us, like Bud Light has theirs and Corona and the Coors brands. But what they all seem to miss is people want authenticity. Yes. And it doesn't come from a Me Too business. You're a beer business. Just do that. Yeah, and we're a hard seltzer business, and that's what people gravitate towards. They want you to be doing your own thing. Yeah.
But the visual, honestly, when I look at the brand, the visual and the label and the packaging, man, was beautiful. Awesome.
Yeah.
Is that? I'm not going to give you any credit. Was that you or was that Janine?
That's me. Yeah.
Come on, Janine had nothing to do with that.
She's had something to do with every brand. She's had I look at cans and she's all, they'd look better if they're all colored. And I'm like, God damn it. So she has her hand in every single one of them for sure. Yeah. But it's fun. That's one of my favorite parts is just creating the aesthetics of these brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. And that's what's cool, right? Is that comes from the creator of the brand, not some marketing firm out of New York or LA or so. That's the authenticity, right? And you can feel that. Yeah. So man, kudos.
All of the films from St. Archer to now, I've made all of them. I still do the Instagram. I'm the one who's doing them, even as they get huge and they're doing millions of dollars in sales. I'm doing it.
Wow. What would you tell somebody, whether they're about to start a business, they have that entrepreneurial spirit, they're about to get going, or they just graduated from grad school like our producer off screen you can't see here. What would you tell somebody who's about to start a journey of something, whether it's business, whether it's a new career? What would you tell somebody in those shoes?
I think I would say before you get started, really look in the mirror and And I think people are drawn to what they think it could be rather than like what the process is. Mm-hmm. And when you look in the mirror and really ask yourself and really like reflect back on who you are you an employee? Are you a business owner? Or are you an entrepreneur? And those three things are really different.
Yes. Yep.
And I think when you look at yourself, and none of them are better or worse, they're just different types of folks. Mm-hmm. I think when people like really look at yourself, don't say you're something because you want to be that. Right. Like, what have you done? What behavior in the past has shown you that you are that person? Mm-hmm. And, for me, it's written all over my childhood, right? Like it's I wanted to start a t-shirt company when I was 7 with my friends, and like it's all the way through. Right. And, I think it was always there. Making films is very entrepreneurial, right? Yeah. You're creating it, you're finding distribution for them, you're finding funding for them, you're trying to, connect the dots and really applying that to starting a business. There's a lot of similarities. And I think for people, they're more enamored with the end goal rather than I was always enamored with the process.
Love it. That's awesome. Awesome. Are you ready?
Well, hold on. A couple more questions.
Ty Bones, keep
sorry,
going.
I had my phone out, man. I apologize. I was trying to see. So what is I was looking for Ashland. Like, okay, how can I get that in Texas? So what's the rollout strategy? When are we going to get Ashland here?
God, I wish I knew, man. Hopefully soon.
Okay.
Hopefully soon. We just need to be able to make enough to like get out of Southern California.
Well, we can help you find a spot in Texas if you want to start here and go out from the country.
As soon as we can do that, I think Texas is high on the list. That's for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, one more question, then Ben's going to hit you with our finisher. But so you've gotten to travel the world, to surfing, filming, business. What is one spot, and let's just keep it to surfing. What is like your favorite surf spot on the planet?
It's the Gold Coast of Australia.
Okay.
Yeah,
easy answer. That was it.
Yeah, easy answer. It's the only other place. I mean, Hawaii too, but the Gold Coast of Australia is man, tough to beat.
Yeah. Well, it's because you can get eaten by great whites.
I was going to say, aren't there great whites?
There's great whites everywhere, man.
That's why we don't get into. I don't even get into a pool.
Jellyfish.
I don't even get in the pool, man. I'm telling you.
There's
all right. Follow-up question. So that's a great. What about culture? Like people. Like what culture of people did you enjoy visiting the most?
What's funny is, and I've been pretty much everywhere. The place I felt the most out of place and like a real foreigner is in Japan. Traveling through there, and I mean, when you can't get out of the airport because you can't read the signs, that's a pretty good indicator. You're
not meant to be.
You're probably going to need a little bit of help. But honestly, I like going back east, and I like being on the East Coast, and it's a totally different world out there than it is Southern California. I really enjoy that. I love, the kids and we love going back to Philadelphia, obviously, and New York and Boston. And it's just a different going back to the kids, seeing different folks, when you're staying in a hotel in Center City, Philadelphia, you see a lot more than you see here in, Encinitas and La Jolla. And, but you see what it really is. And I think it's important to see the different cultures we have here and more so than maybe abroad.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Dallas, Texas, got it. That's a good answer.
Yeah, that's great.
You're going to bring the kids here one of these days, and we're going to turn them. They're going to be Cowboy fans. You watch.
That I would die.
I know you would. I'm calling Janine up, telling her, hey, look, we got the flights. We're taking them to the Star.
I have told them verbatim. If you marry a Cowboys fan, you know what jersey you have on fucking week 1.
Hey.
You don't you ever
pay for your own wedding.
No, they know. It's very well ingrained in their head.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome. Well, man, this has been an absolute blast. I keep waiting. We've done tons of these. We've been doing this for about a year now, this podcast, and I keep waiting for it to not be fun anymore. But every single one and every person we meet and get to talk to and hear their story, it's just been your story, man, and just your spirit. your work ethic, your competitiveness. I mean, it really is inspiring. And we so much appreciate you sharing this time. Our last question.
For sure.
Our last question, we ask every guest this. If you could go back to any point in your life and tell yourself one thing, doesn't necessarily mean you go change anything, but if you could just go tell yourself one thing, where do you go and what do you tell yourself?
I'd probably be middle school, and probably tell myself a couple things. First and foremost, to just, it sounds cliched, but to really be yourself, and not try and, change to please a certain crowd or group of folks or fit in or, because ultimately that winds up being difficult for you. Right. And then you wake up 20 years later and you go, wait a minute, who am I for real? I've been trying to be something that maybe I'm not for so many years, just trying to kind of fit in. And, I definitely would have said that. And I think I would have said, try and have a little bit more fun. It's try and enjoy what you're doing and kind of not take for granted these amazing opportunities and really, really soak it in. Don't wait to the end. Like really enjoy it in the middle,
Yeah.
That's great. That's gold.
Well, Josh, man, we really appreciate your time, man. This was
so fun, man. So fun.
And I don't even call it an interview, man.
Sure.
This was not an interview. This was a conversation.
Yeah.
And
it was great, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so what's your spot in San Diego? Favorite surf spot? Is it Point Loma? You go,
right here, just in Encinitas, right here.
Right.
Whenever you guys are in town, hit me up, and we'll go look at a couple shows.
That's a video. That's a video. 100% a video.
Do they make tandem surfboards? You might have to ride with Darren.
I'll be holding on to your leg.
You got to get the life jacket.
Can get you down there.
Oh man! Hey, so Josh, how does people find you? If they need to, if our audience wanted to find you, how do they go about that?
I mean, not you personally, your brands, right?
Your brands.
To spend money on your brands.
Just on Instagram, Ashland and Ashland Hard Seltzer and Villager Spirits, and those are the best two to keep up with what we got going on.
All right.
What about those documentaries you made? Can we get a hold of those somehow? Because I grew up watching Kelly Slater, so I may have seen it, right? I probably saw your documentary.
I wish that, when you start directing people to like DVD purchases on eBay, I'm not sure how that goes over. So unless you know my mom by chance, I don't know if you're going to be able to hook up with one of those things.
Man, I got a tub in my garage right now. My parents just brought over all of my like high school highlight tapes on VHS. And I'm like,
man,
what am I supposed to do with these?
Dude, you don't lie. You've been watching those since you got them.
First thing I did was eBay. All right, converter.
No, seriously, you got to go to like a garage sale and get one of those things now.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, man, we appreciate your time, man.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, brother.
Man. Well, all the best, man. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother. That was awesome.